Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Drobo Broadcast Network. This is our first broadcast ever. My name is Mario Blandini at Drobo, and today's topic is using shared storage to maximize high availability and fault tolerance in VMware environments. Our question out to everybody is your SAN small enough? Because even small VMs need a SAN. Some quick logistics. If you have dialed in by phone, you can listen to me right now. We are not doing any internet audio, so if you want to participate in the audio, you have to dial the phone number. You can go to the info tab within WebEx to get that information if you do need it. We'll talk for about 20 minutes and save time at the end for questions and answers, which is everyone's favorite part. You can enter those questions in online at any time. And if you want to give us some feedback after the event, we'd love that. You can do that on the form that pops up at the end, or send us an email, TV as in television, at drobo.com, or send us a tweet on Twitter at Drobo. So let's go ahead and get started with the background. I want to welcome to the program our special guest for today, George Crump. How you doing today, George?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Mario.
All right. So we know that IT managers have been using virtualization, regardless of the size of the company, for quite some time. I was just recently out at VMworld, and 17,000 of our friends were there to take in a lot of the information about how to use virtualization to their best advantage. And we know that for some smaller companies, they may not be using the full HA or fault tolerance capabilities. We're glad to have you on board to talk with us today because you're an expert in the field, and you've also written a paper recently on the topic of virtualization for small and medium businesses. So why don't you give us a little bit of background on who is Storage Switzerland, your firm?
Sure. We're an analyst firm. We focus primarily on the storage, cloud, and virtualization markets, which kind of fit well for what we're talking about here. We do a lot of work in product testing. In fact, we have a Drobo Elite actually that's in our lab that we've been testing, and we've actually sort of hijacked it and moved it in production. So we do a lot of real-world stuff right on the Drobo Elite itself. And then we also interact with real-world implementations and also working with users and suppliers on different aspects of the industry. And then you can find most of the information and the write-ups that we do, as well as lab reports on our website there on the screen.
All right, so it's fair to say that you're not just the Hair Club president, but you're also a client then of Drobo.
That's right.
All right, as we move on here to our next slide, server virtualization is being used by a lot of small and medium businesses. And rather than get into the how to do it, I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit more about the strategy and what you recommend to companies who are looking to use server virtualization in their small environment for the first time.
Sure. What we tend to recommend is what we call a server one strategy, which what that means essentially is from the point the small business reaches the size that they need a server, and that can come in a variety of forms, that they need to at least be thinking virtualized, and we're not opposed to virtualizing even one server, just because of the value that's created, and we'll show you some of that later on in the presentation. But we want you thinking virtualized almost from day one when you need your first server. And then only select, as you're going through this process, part of that is only selecting applications that are virtualization ready. In today's world, there's no point in buying a application where the vendor won't support you in a virtualized environment, because especially in the small business, we just think that's reality. Another important note is, and kind of justifies this server one strategy, is what we find is while as a small business grows, it takes a while to get to the first server, but the next 4 or 5 come almost in rapid succession. You might start with an email server or a file server first, and then quickly there's a SQL database starting up, or a financial application, or maybe a web front is also very common. So that's one of the reasons we want people thinking and even having the foundational components in place for a virtualized strategy right from the get-go.
I think shared storage is a part of that architecture, George, if you think about it, because a lot of people have thought of shared storage as a foundation for scaling up the number of applications while keeping storage consolidated and easy to manage. So when you're talking to customers who are SMBs, why do you tell them that the shared storage is really important for that architecture?
Well, we really think that shared storage is the key foundation for server virtualization. It really unlocks the full potential of the application. It allows you to move servers virtual servers from physical server to physical server. So, especially in a small business, for the first time, gives pretty close to very high availability capabilities that haven't been available before. Same with capabilities like storage motion. We can move the server images themselves from one device to another without interrupting anything else that's going on. So really what this equates to is high availability in the SMB that just hasn't existed before. And in the past, where I think that high availability was kind of put on the shelf for the small business and said, hey, you guys don't really need that. I disagree. I think that the fewer amount of servers you have, probably the more critical those servers become, and also it's less likely that the small business will have the resources and spare equipment around to quickly build up another server and recover it. So we just think it's a perfect match for the small business.
And the same thing applies to departments within a larger organization. If they have a separate little IT function, maybe they don't have the resources to build a large shared storage infrastructure, at least historically, and that would have prevented them, or you say roadblocked them, from getting some of these features and capabilities. For folks looking, you're probably wondering why there's a picture of Super Mario grabbing a star and realizing his full potential. It's not because my name's Mario and I want to give myself a shameless plug. It's because SMB, a lot of people don't even know what an SMB is. Super Mario Brothers pops up in Google if you type in SMB. And what we're talking about here is a company, either a department within a larger organization or a small organization that has limited resources financially to invest in infrastructure, but is doing server virtualization today to really economize. That's the reason for doing it, and there's a lot of other benefits that get associated with that. And the purpose of today's discussion is to talk about the storage, how you can also economize in that area, get an affordable solution that's easy to use and allow you to realize and unlock that full potential. So, George, we're going to go to the next slide and talk about the basic architecture. And you really don't need a lot of components in order to make this work, do you?
No, not really. And I think that that's a common misconception in the industry, that when you start hearing server virtualization, you think of data centers and racks of servers and things like that, and it's really pretty simple. You typically need 2 or more physical servers that are going to be your hosts. You need a server that is going to run vCenter to kind of be your control point, and from a physical server hardware standpoint, that's really about it. If you look at for most SMBs, even the most entry-level server on the market today can host a fair amount of virtual machines. And then from the shared storage standpoint, frankly, this was a hole, I think, in the industry for a while, and probably was the big limiter to getting SMBs involved in server virtualization. But now we've really seen a significant shift in affordability and capabilities here. So you need 2 or more SAN devices in this area just to be able to provide high availability, and then also some sort of a shared network or that can connect all this together, because what we need to be able to do is make sure all the physical servers can see all the physical storage.
Great. As we move on then to our next slide, we talked a little bit about requirements. You need a network storage solution in order to do the high availability and fault tolerance, and we'll get more specifically into what those things are. But when looking at getting a shared storage solution for SMB, what do you recommend as the things that customers should be looking at in order to make sure they're picking one that's right for them?
Sure. We kind of break it down into 5 key areas. The first, and especially in the SMB, I think this is always going to be number one, is it's got to be very cost effective. What we describe here is that purchases in the SMB are personal, right? That while the business owner themselves may not actually write the check, we find that they're much more often involved, and they're certainly closer to the decision process than certainly in a very large corporation. So cost effectiveness is real critical here. The second is that it's got to be protected, meaning that we are to some extent putting a lot of eggs in one basket, and we want to make sure that the data stays intact. So some sort of data protection capability to protect you from a hard drive failure or something like that is also critical. The third one is easy upgrades and management of the environment. Well, as we kind of talked about earlier in our Server 1 strategy, 1 quickly becomes 5 in almost every environment we've been involved with, and so with that upgrade also becomes the need for more capacity and ease of management and things like that. So the ability to quickly, I don't want to say shift direction, but move forward is a very important capability. The fourth is, the way I describe it is performance in reasonable performance. Most SMBs don't need heart-pounding, heart-thumping performance. What they need is something that's consistent and is roughly about the same speed as internal storage. So performance is important, but making sure you have the right type of performance is really what we focus in on there.
Well, let me ask you a question, George. It kind of lumps the last two together, because I think classically, if someone looks at buying storage, the first thing they do is they go to look to see how many spindles you have and how many IOPS are supported and what the link speed is for the interface. And that may not necessarily be the best way to look at the criteria for selection, because as you mentioned, for a lot of smaller environments, you will not need the performance, and you don't need all the features that are necessarily built in to those larger scale storage arrays. And by going with something that might be better matched for an SMB, you can actually fit it into your budget.
Yeah, absolutely. What I always say is that you're only going to get the performance that you actually need. So if you got a race car that can go 150 miles an hour and you're trying to commute from San Jose to San Francisco or New York to Boston, you're not going to be going 150 miles an hour. So basically what we say is buy the performance that you need, not the performance that that the brochure will report to.
I think that's a great point then to make around iSCSI as a technology then, George. You've done a lot of testing dating back to the turn of the century when iSCSI first hit the market. It was first not described as too slow and a lot of overhead, but if you look at the way that technology has evolved, it's available in some affordable form factors that support virtualization environments in a really good way.
Yeah, absolutely. We like you said, we've been involved with virtualization. iSCSI almost since its inception, and the key point that has always followed iSCSI, it's a relatively simple protocol to get started at a relatively low cost. So in the SMB and especially in a virtualized environment, it's a great match.
Got it. So as we go on then to talk about how we can leverage the virtualization architecture to get the most out of it, I'm showing you Archimedes here, moving the world as one guy. And for a lot of small businesses, that one person is the IT manager, or in a department, there's one IT resource that's helping them out. And what are the things that person needs to be worried about when they're putting their package together and they're taking advantage of the features that VMware vSphere Essentials Plus can give them?
Sure. So I think the first concern that generally comes up in this world is that you are putting a lot of eggs in one basket, and I think that's a very fair concern. And if you think back to the slide with the 2 servers on it and the 2 storage devices, we're recommending an architecture that specifically addresses that concern. And so you actually move into a better environment where in the past, if you had 3 servers all doing one function and one of them went down, you lost that function. Now in this environment, you may have 2 servers doing 4 functions, but if you lose one of the server, now with the architecture that we talked about, you can quickly shift those resources to another server as an example. And again, typically the distant second is performance. What we find repeatedly is people get wrapped up in performance specs, and again, performance only matters if you can actually take advantage of it. And for many environments, the current link speed on 1 gigabit iSCSI is perfect.
Right. I think that architecturally, as we showed you from the slide you mentioned before, that having 2 SAN storage devices is probably better for you than having one higher performance device, because it gives you the higher availability and lets you do some of those advanced functions where one storage device wouldn't.
All right, agreed.
Great. In terms of server migration, this is one of the killer features for a lot of people who get into server virtualization. I, as a former IT guy myself, used to really loathe having to ask for permission to do downtimes for maintenance. And one of the great things that server virtualization has allowed IT people is the finance guys signed off because it saved money on physical servers, but gave the IT person the flexibility to move applications so they can do a lot of their patching and maintenance and other activities without any application downtime. Does this architecture satisfy that as well, the shared storage architecture?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we refer to as on the server migration piece is it's the ability to go home at 5 o'clock instead of working midnights, right? When you would be allowed to take a server down. So the ability to that architecture allows you to shift those virtual machines over to the alternate server. The alternate server, because it's on the same, it can see the same storage, can pick up those images and continue processing as if nothing happened. There's no interruption to the user, and then the first server that may or may not be having the problem or need an upgrade or whatever could be going on with it can be addressed during working hours when you're alert, awake, and don't have pressure to get home. Same with the storage migration piece, right? If one of those two storage devices fail for one reason or another, you can shift those workloads and continue running off of the second storage device with no problem at all. So that's the idea behind that total architecture, is to make sure essentially that everything can get to everything and that anything can run anything else.
Okay, in terms of backup, which is different than data protection, different than high availability, it's really more, for availability versus fault tolerance. There are some cool features within VMware, specifically this Essentials Plus package. And can you describe a little bit of the reason why customers would want to go for the Essentials Plus versus just Essentials?
Sure. Well, I think if you look at the real difference between the two products, Essentials Plus really focuses on availability and recoverability. The ability to, we talked at length already about vMotion and storage vMotion. Both of those are enabled with Essentials Plus. And then you also get VMware Data Recovery, which is a very good backup application that is designed specifically to take advantage of and handle virtual machine image type of backup. It has built-in deduplication already on it. It leverages all the capabilities that a lot of the high-end enterprise applications are even just now adding to the environment. So it's almost a perfect match for the type of architecture that we've been talking about. And protects you in the event of the worst case disaster, because the only thing we don't have covered in that one particular slide is if for some reason you can't get to the whole building, right? This way you've got that protected as well.
Great. I think the reason that we wanted to communicate this information is that for a lot of folks that are out looking to size up and buy a storage area network for their virtualization environment, they can find a lot of these features within the storage. They can find a lot of the features within VMware itself. And for the small to medium environments, using the features natively in VMware can be a good cost saver and allow you to get that network storage that you need within your budget. So as we go on here to putting it all together, George, I've got an example here of 16 terabytes, which I have 2 different 8 terabyte storage arrays that are in the environment. You can get several different solutions out there on the market that are all VMware hardware ready certified and enable you to do the server vMotion because all the servers and VMs can see all the storage, as well as the storage vMotion. And for a lot of folks, they think SAN equals $50,000. And for some larger scale solutions, that's very much true. If you look on the right-hand side, there are simple start first-time SAN products out there on the market for less than $20,000. You can get a pair of them with 3-year maintenance, each less than $10,000, both of them less than $20,000 US dollars. And why that might sound like a lot to a small business, George, you mentioned that when you're a small business, the check writing is much more personal. In the scheme of things, it's lower than it had been in the past, allowing you to get to a shared storage solution. On the left-hand side, we at Drobo have our Drobo Elite solution with 8 terabytes in each of those arrays of the 7200 RPM Black Enterprise drives. You can get a pair of those with maintenance for 3 years on both of those for about $12,000 US dollars. So about a 35% savings over the example on the right. Both of them very affordable and a good fit for this first-time SAN that'll allow you to grow as your virtualization environment grows. You know, and the savings there, 35%, you know, or about $6,000 US dollars. That'll pretty much pay for the Essentials Plus license itself, won't it, George?
Yeah, absolutely. The Essential Plus is in the $5,000 ballpark.
All right. So for folks that are looking to put one of these things together, if you're an integrator or you're an IT person in a department or a small organization, there are some solutions out there that can help you get into that network storage that you need in order to take advantage of all those features that we talked about. So we're going to now go into some top questions. If you haven't had a chance to ask any questions on the internet, you can type those into WebEx right now. I'm going to hit you with a couple here real quick, George. How many VMs can you consolidate onto a single vSphere server? I think a lot of people want to know how many physical servers to buy, and they want to do some simple math. How many virtual servers then go onto the physical? What's your rule of thumb that you use when you're talking to small customers?
In the small business market, you know, the safe answer, I guess, is it depends because there's always variables. But if we're taking the typical use case of an email server, a file server, potentially a financial application or an accounting package, something like that, you can generally run 3 to 5 virtual machines on a mid-class or the entry-level class physical server with no problem at all.
All right, and for a lot of folks, that's exactly what they need. If they have, you know, Exchange, they have a small SQL, file and print, DNS, maybe a web server, that kind of gets them all in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that for the large majority of SMBs, 2 to 3 physical servers is maybe the most they ever need.
Right, and then you could probably match that with a pair of SAN solutions and be built out for what you're going to need, at least over the short term, to also support some growth. Another question here, the second one, how should folks think of their local drive in the context of a VMware deployment? Because a lot of folks are talking about SSDs, they're talking about tiering, they want to understand how to best utilize all that storage. You have some recommendations on that, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Most environments still today don't boot their physical hosts from directly from the SAN, which is kind of pretty realistic, especially in the small business market. What we recommend is you use that local drive for essentially 2 functions. Number one is to obviously boot the server, get vSphere running, and get the hypervisor loaded and talking to the SAN. All other, if you will, semi-permanent storage should be coming off of the SAN-attached device. The other thing we like to see locally is things that are more temporal in nature or transient. So great examples are swap files, log files, things of that nature. That does a couple of things for you. Number one, it keeps traffic off of the I don't want to call it not important, but the chatty traffic off of the SAN, and allows you really to extend the SAN a little further. You had mentioned solid state. We think that solid state could be a great example here, not putting solid state on the SAN and spending the money there, but using solid state for very rapid boots, putting it locally inside the physical server, and then also putting swap file, temp files, log files, things like that in it as well. It makes for a great combination.
Some great advice, George. Key takeaways, folks, are that shared storage is required if you want to take full advantage of virtualization and the capabilities within VMware. The vSphere Essentials Plus kit contains that fault tolerance and those high availability features for small businesses and departments that you don't necessarily need to build into the storage in order to have the type of service levels and manageability and availability that you might be looking for to support your customers. We feel that iSCSI SAN solutions exist at an affordable cost. So if you previously thought that you couldn't get into one of these things and you had to use only local storage or go with some direct attached storage options because they were the only ones in your price range, I hope you find that there are a couple of solutions on the market that can allow you to get in there and do some of the things that George described. So far, we have no questions that have come in over the internet. We're going to go ahead and start our Q&A, and I'll go ahead and save the one question that I have for you to start it off, George. The question about mixing physical and virtual machines. I assume that that's definitely doable in a storage area network.
Yes, absolutely. We have people do it all the time. You can have physical servers that aren't running any kind of virtualization. They can attach and be connected to the same storage network that the virtual hosts are.
All right. One question that we did get on the internet was, I don't see the slides and the replay yet posted at Drobo.tv. Great multitasking use of the internet. Al Gore sure did hook us up when he invented the darn thing. Yes, we will have those posted out there, but give us until the end of the day so we can take the live recording that we're doing now, post-produce that, and put that out there on the website as a streaming off the website, as well as a downloadable M4A file that you can play as an enhanced podcast on your mobile device, iPhone, iPod, or otherwise, with chapters. So if you don't want to listen to a certain chapter, you want to be able to jump back and forth between the audio, you'll be able to do that with the audio file that will be available a little bit later today. So if I'll give one more chance for folks to ask questions by getting on their touch-tone phone. Looks like we'll go ahead and unmute one of the questions we have there, but I'll take one off the internet. Does Drobo Elite have a redundant power supply? George, in your testing, you've tested Drobo Elite, and it's a single fixed power supply. How would you get around the availability there? Would you just deploy two of them and use the two chassis as your redundant power?
Yeah, that's exactly what we did, and that's what the architecture shows. That's the safest way to get around it. And I will tell you that I can't remember the last time we've lost the power supply in a storage system. So it's sometimes you're planning for things that likely aren't happen. But if me being the risk averse person that I am, that's what we recommend is two devices.
Great. Josh Deering has a question. Can you hear us, Josh? All right, I unmuted Josh here. We'll wait for him to ask a question. In fact, it was the Drobo Elite question. Great. Hey, George, as we go ahead and wrap it up, I want to definitely thank you for your time today and for sharing that information. Folks will be able to check you out on your website, storage-switzerland.com, and you'll have a paper you're publishing quite soon, I understand, on VMware for SMBs.
Yep, absolutely, that's correct. And then they can also go there and they can look at our testing of the Drobo Elite as well.
Great, and for all the folks that did participate today, we want to thank you very much for your participation. If you have any questions or comments, you can get us at TV, that's as in television, at Drobo.com, or on Twitter, at Drobo. And as mentioned before, you can check out more information, a transcript of the Q&A, as well as assets from today's broadcast out at our website, Drobo.tv. Tune in next time, folks, as we go to Tuesday, September 28th. In 2 weeks, we'll be bringing you another guest expert from the industry to talk about some disaster recovery and data protection technologies for the SMB, in keeping with the theme of easy and affordable shared storage solutions for those out in the marketplace. Hey, thanks again, George, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that wraps it up. And until next time, folks, happy sharing.